Hey party people, and welcome back to MVM. And today, the 3-year wait is over. I am here to talk about Arydia. I finally played this prototype. I played it for like 5 hours by myself last week, and then I played it with the designer 2 weeks before. So it's really exciting to be able to share this game with you finally, right? Finally, it's here in the flesh, and it's very playable. But this is a prototype, and this is a preview, so take anything that I get in here with a grain of salt, but I've been waiting for this game for a long time. So what is this game? 1 to 4 players, cooperative game. It is a lot more narrative driven than Xia, but it also is open, wide open and unpredictable. You will discover a lot about yourself because you are exiles, and you're going to be going out to earn squills, taking on quests, finding NPCs. This is very much an adventure game like Zelda, Final Fantasy, I don't know, like just open world type games that I can think of that, insert that there. You're going to be developing your characters just like an RPG. And that's kind of it. I'm going to go into different points of the game so that you get an idea of the adventure, the discovery, the character development, and the combat. So let's go ahead and get to it. This is a long intro, so let's go ahead and show you this game. So Arydia sells itself as a big adventure game, and that is exactly what you're going to see here on the basin. And the basin has a whole bunch of hex tiles. These hex tiles are going to pop out as you discover each one of them. You're going to have a travel deck that is basically going to match up icons, and it's going to give you a little risk for traveling, because sometimes if you travel between these, you may have something like a light sunny day, you may have a windy day, but then you may have these events that pop up. And as you pull these cards, you may have to do stat checks. You may have these tokens that you're going to flip over, and if you're out there too long, you could get a fatigue card in your battle deck. So there's a little bit of explanation, a little gating to how you travel around. But when you pop out these tiles, you're going to find points of interest. They could be a town that you're going to buy items. They could be your camp where you go and relax and you go ahead and level up and different things like that. But it could be clues to other things. I'm not going to spoil that stuff for you, but that's kind of what's going on. This is some of the stuff from the tutorial, so I'm not going to get too spoilery with this stuff. But it's really interesting because it's also going to tell you the different tiles that will come out, because that is when you go inside the world and discover what these locations are all about. Let's go ahead and talk about discovery, because that is where the game really does open up when we get inside of one of these locations. So let's say now you want to go inside of a tile. Now you're going inside, I don't even know what that sound was. You're going inside of inside of an adventure world. So now you're in the adventure, and they're going to ask you to pull out a specific tile, like I was saying before. And that's going to look like this. They're going to be big ones, they're going to be small ones, but they'll look like this here, and they'll have different locations and events on them, and they'll have different buildings, and they can be tiny ones like this one right here that come out of here. And yes, there's an active version and a not so active version. Here you go. We'll have these little spots right here, and they'll tell you what that location is. But it all this starts with this travel, this deck right here. This is what all the cards come out of: the monster cards, the event cards, the point of interest cards, and some cards that are going to be active and eventually move to the dead side of this not active deck over here. You even have a spot where you're going to be saving your journey if you wanted to play over multiple sessions, because this game does get long. I played it for 5 straight hours. I don't think anybody's going to play this for 5 straight hours. You may have to break it up a little bit. But anyway, so now you're down into the world, and you're going to have the big tile out. So now your adventurers are on the board. They're moving around freely because they're in adventure mode. There's a combat mode, which we'll touch on later. But yeah, you're in adventure mode, no action points. You're just moving around, taking your turn, and you may see points of interest now. You'll see events, and events will usually set the scene to kind of show you what's going on. But if points of interest could definitely tell you, hey, you see a dog running around and you run after it. I'm trying to set you up for some stuff here. You may, smell something and you want to, it'll say, hey, maybe you smell some bread and you smell some bread cooking and you see a house. It'll set a scene for you so you know where you are. And then you can start to go to the buildings that are there. So the buildings will just show a number, and they'll just say, hey, small this, long that, and you'll go to the tiles like a deck and open them up. But when you do, you flip them over, and all of a sudden now you see the inside of that building, and now you'll see that there's an NPC in here, and there's other spots that you can go inside of that building, just like as if you were to walk in an Animal Crossing or Stardew Valley and walk inside of a door, that boom, the door opens, and now you have this tile you're going to be putting on top of that tile, and you'll see what's inside. And that's where the discovery points come. You can talk to all these NPCs, and when you do, you're going to have choices of what you say to them. They're going to tell you about the NPC, what they're doing. It could just be somebody sweeping their floor. You talk to them and you ask them questions. What you're going to be doing is having someone else at the table read that card, and you're going to be making the choices, and the person will read those choices, the answer, the response. And what will happen is maybe you have a stat check. Maybe you ask someone a question and they think you're deceptive, so now you got to make a wisdom roll or something like that. And when that person helps you out by reading the card, hopefully thematically, we're role-playing here, you're going to receive what's called role-playing point. And it's put into your character board, and it will give you +3 to a roll in the future when you want to use it. So there's a little advantage to doing something cooperatively, doing a little reading for your friend there. But there's all these different things that can pop up. Just talking to an NPC could open up some of the things that you need to go find. They'll send you on a quest. You'll often see little paths open up, and all of a sudden you have new choices to make. One of the things I'll kind of give you just one of these kind of setups that I had. I went into a bar and I saw a guy and he asked me for some money. I didn't have the money, but when I brought him back some money, guess what? Some things opened up. I went to the bartender, and the bartender said, hey, I have this problem with this ghost upstairs. I went and saw the ghost, and the ghost, we're trying to talk him out of there, trying to figure out how to get him out of there, and they had me solve a riddle. Okay, so I had to guess this riddle. Who knows what would have happened if I didn't get it? But if I didn't get it, maybe they had me bury cards away. So now it goes in this deck in the back, and I'll never know what happens unless I passed it. Well, what if I passed it, and all of a sudden it says, hey, go to this spot right here, and then I'll flip over a tile, and it could be treasure. I even, in that same bar, I went outside, and there was a kid there, and the kid had something to do with another person in town. And as you can see, I'm just trying to show you what will happen at one location. It opens up. And I believe even at that location, there was a job board. And you can go to the job board and get a job and then go out and complete that job and come back. There's a lot. Simple pick up and deliver quests. Simple go kill these things and bring them back. This is standard gaming affair, but this is in a board game, an open board game to discover and explore. And that is the venture that goes on here, and that is some of the discovery that happens in Arydia. Now let's delve deeper into characters. I've been holding back the character part. Let's get to the character and the character development. So very, very early in the tutorial, you're going to have to choose a character. And that character is going to either be a halfling, human, dwarf, or elf. Okay, so you're going to also have your paths. So your paths will take you down either like a warrior, an archer, a rogue, or a wizard type character. So you have all these things you're going to choose. You're going to be grabbing those things and adding them to your board and create this board out here. You'll have 3 boards. One board is kind of like who you are, your stats, your skills, your XP, your backpack, your coin purse. The next one is going to be your kind of like your setup, your body. What are you wearing? Also going to have your action points. What do you do for your role-playing points, which we talked about before, that gives you +3 to your roll. You're going to be chucking a d20 in this game, and then you have your weapons and things that you have on your belt, around your body, and this is also spots where people can hit. And as you can see, I have armor in these spots, but I don't have armor in a lot of places. This would be me in a very early game. This over here is going to be your health, your hit points, your magic points, and your special points. These will help you with movement. Of course, magic is magic, and your health. You're very weak, very weak early on. And then you get to the point where you start to level up. And before I talk about leveling up, I should tell you that each one of these races has their own skills that they'll add. So let's say, for example, the halfling has grit. It says, before a roll, exhaust and roll twice, keeping the higher roll. Refresh your skills later. So you'd have to refresh it when you're kind of relaxing out of town. But eventually what will happen is you are going to level up. And what happens is several things. You're going to have to choose, and you look on the back of the card, you're going to have to choose which stats you want to move. So you have your SP, your MP, or your HP. So you choose which one of those goes up. But then you'll have your stats that will go up. And it depends on which one you choose, but it will slide all the way up to that point. So if I got to, let's say, level 2, I can move my strength, my dex from 1 all the way to 3 because I've checked that box. It's kind of an interesting way to do it, do some leveling up, but it kind of catches your stats up a little bit there. And then you also are going to choose a skill, and you have to start on the left and go to the right, and it's kind of like a tech tree, right? It's a skill tree. And because there's certain ones right here that kind of chain it off of each other and things like that. Well, what you do is you would choose a skill starting on the left, pop it out, boom, and you add it to the skills over here. The interesting thing about skills are when you learn new ones, you're not going to have access to them right away. What you have to do is fulfill the requirement. It's usually like a condition, a combat condition type thing. The ones you have in the beginning, nothing. So I have this one right here. It says pummel. To unlock, attack 2 enemies with the staff in 1 turn. When I do that, it flips over, and now I have this pummel skill. Now, what does the pummel skill do? Well, I have these cards. I can look through my cards and find the pummel skill or the vault skill, any of these types of skills. I would look through here and find it, and it would tell me what that actual skill does. I would look through any one of these, prepare bandages, it has it right here, vault, it has it right here. So I would just look through all these cards, and it would tell me the skill. It also gives me an example of what that'll look like. So it has a combat example, and it explains what the actions are. I thought that was really interesting that they gave these, kind of like Xia, where you have really good explanations of what you're doing in this game. So there you go. So yeah, you'll be building up your character here. You have your XP that you'll be using and spending, increasing your stats. You have your body here, and then you also have your little skill tech tree. I should also say in these chests are your own specific weapons and things like that. So if you get a specific moment where you get to grab through that chest, you blindly go in there, grab something, and now that can be added to your sack over here, or it can be put on your body. That's your character in a nutshell. There's a lot of things you can do, a lot of ways you can go, but you got to use it for something, right? So let's go ahead and show you how you fight in this game. All right, y'all, let's get into the combat here because this is going to determine a lot of things about whether this game is for you or not. So we have our monsters which have come, our rats which have come from this deck here. You're going to be looking through the monsters. When you find that monster, it'll tell you if it's a mob monster or a boss monster, or you have several. Here I have a kind of a fake setup here. I'm not going to tell you where it's from, but you have these four rats here. I only have actually 2 out here. And then you have the AI card and the AI card for the giant rat down here. And what this means is they're going to act as a mob, so they'll always go if the mob goes. And then they also have this threat that they will spend, and that comes from this threat meter that's on here. And then it tells you their different attacks, much like I showed you my cards that show my attacks, and where they do and how much damage they do and what dice they'll chuck, which we'll get to in a minute. And then they also have the loot that they get, sweet loot for the boss, of course. And experience, of course, right? But you have this deck here. The AI deck works like this. So on my turn, the first thing I'll do is flip over one of these AI cards. And that will tell me, okay, well, I'm going to be adding threat. And once again, this is going to be something they spend on their turn. But for right now, nothing. So what I'll do is I will use one of these action markers. I will have 3 because I'm playing by myself right now, but I would have 2 if it was a little bit higher of a player count. So I use that, and I can move up to 3. I'll just move here. Let's say I move there. And then I'm going to, I want to move this person here. When I move, I raise this combo level. And what happens when the combos go up, it'll go up as we move. It will allow me to do these special attacks that I've been earning as I level up. So this is something to pay attention to. You're going to be able to spend it if you have enough. So let's say I was at 2. I could do this pummel move. I would spend it like that. But for right now, I have this. The second thing I'm going to do is attack. So I just put these action markers on here. And what I'm doing is I am trying to roll. Now my weapon uses wisdom, and I can roll a 2+ for an attack. And then if I roll 10, I get a little bit of bonus, and I'll explain what that is. Right now I'm rolling for wisdom, so I'm going to add 2 to my roll. Ooh, Lord, so I got a 20. Let's just say, so I got a 21, I get 20. So what'll happen is I get the highest pattern here. So the pattern in each weapon is different. I have mine, which comes from the top. It has an arrow that tells me where it goes, and then I can attack across from there. There are weapons that will have diagonals. There's ones that have zigzags. This one right here has a diagonal going from the top right. And what does that mean for you when you attack? So I'm attacking this green guy. He has his own pattern. It has its own pattern on here that I have to fight with. But mine starts from the top, so I can only attack on this weak spot up here. And as a matter of fact, it tells me to add +1 when I hit the weak spot. So I got to pay attention to that. Now, if I were to attack them again, which I am, okay, that's 9 + 2, which is 11. Now, I still have that same attack pattern, but I will be able to now attack here and across from there, okay, because now I actually have spots to attack. And that takes him out, and he's gone. But I want to show you something else. Let's say I had a sword. A sword has a pattern where it goes straight across. And let's say I attacked. I can attack across this pattern, and if you see that little red marker in the middle, what that does is it's like a critical hit, and then it adds to where the arrow's going. So it does like a little critical hit pattern. And this is something that you got to take advantage of when you have different characters. As you can see, like I said, this dull scythe has a different attack pattern. So I may want to use that against specific types of monsters. And this can happen in some really interesting ways as you go along, like this rat right here. If I attack across here and here, boom, it goes up here, that kind of thing like that. But that's how my attacks work. Now, once again, if it was my next turn, as you can see, there is a mob here, and there are mob characters. So they would come after me, and they would move in. Okay, so what will happen is I will look at this. Their current status, mob status, they have 3. So they would spend the 3, and what will happen is now they will go to the enemy that's furthest away, move 5. Okay, and now they'll do a frenzy attack because they have 3 threat to spend to attack. So boom, they attack me. It's going to be for 2, and they're going to be using a specific die. All these dice that I have here are going to represent different parts of the body. Like this is the lower body, this is your sides, you got your head, things like that. But they're going to tell you exactly what dice they use, and this one is going to be the yellow dice. So he's going to attack me here. He's going to attack looks like my waist over here. So I'm going to put it there. I'm just going to put it there so you can see. And I can decide whether I want to block that or not. So maybe I don't want to take damage, but I'm going to go ahead and use it to block. And it tells me exactly how much it can block. Now it's kind of broken, and I basically have to take an attack. Let's say they attack me again. What happens? Boom. They attack me in my arm. No, they attack me in my hand. Ow. Which makes sense because it's rats, right? But yeah, that's kind of how all this stuff works. You're going to be using your combo meter trying to get off these abilities. And of course, little puzzle here. And then you also have your AI that's also trying to spin these things as well. I forgot to tell you, you can get fatigued. I was talking about that before. That stuff goes in there and you lose actions. So there's all kinds of little things that are in here that are in combat that are really interesting. I hope that gives you an idea of what's going on. Now, I think that's everything in Arydia. Let's get to my final thoughts. I've been trying so hard to keep my opinion out of this preview as much as possible, but I can't contain my excitement about this one because it feels like Xia evolved. It is a fantasy RPG. It is what's going on, let's say, on the planets, and it just feels like that sense of adventure. You're going out and you're going to experience what goes on in the top world, and then you may run into some events there, and then you go into this town and things just open up. You don't know what's going to happen. And that's something I used to love as a child and as an adult. And here we are at a game that's trying to present that experience. So if you're looking for something that's got that classic, RPG video game type experience in a board game, this might be the game that you're looking for, Arydia. And I'm going to leave it right there. Hopefully I helped you make an informed back-end decision because I can't tell you what to do with your money. I'd like to thank Far Off Games for sponsoring this video, and I'd like to thank you for your time. And if you definitely have questions, please leave them in the comments below because I will definitely try to answer them as best as possible. All right, y'all. Take care and have a wonderful day. Thank you so much for joining me on MVM.